Hello TeluguOne viewers, now I'm going to show you another pendant and also Jhumkas. For this thing, I am using gauge box. This is called gauge box, wherein you have all concentric circles of different sizes. I am using approximately size number 8 with size number 4. For that, my bed is clear. Like I have taken little clay and I have rolled it. I made the surface straight with the help of this chapati roller as shown in the previous sessions. I am using size number 8, which will be approximately equal to your size which you use for your tea glass, probably the same size. You always need not have your tools with you. You can work with any tools which you have at your house. I am removing excess clay. I am just cutting into a circle and removing excess clay. So whenever working with terracotta, make sure that your hands are neat, your surface is neat, and be little patient while working with it. And all the excess clay which you have need to be again stored. Dip it into water, put it into cloth, cover it all the sides so that you can use that clay for the next purpose. I've taken my pendant. So always whenever we are going ahead with our pendant, the size of the pendant has to be prefixed. Few people like it to be thin, few people like it to be thick, it all depends on the personal opinion. Minimum thickness of the pendant has to be like around 7 mm. If it's too thin also, when you're baking it, your pendant might break. Always make sure when we are baking our product, if we are using excess water or if we are trying to cover up all the cracks with water, rubbing with water, after the finished product and after baking, it might break while baking. So when we are making product, we'll make little extra products. If we are making beads, if you wanted some around 50 beads, make 55 beads, so that if grace of 5 beads should be taken all the time. For this pendant now, I'm gonna cut. I'm taking off another extra excess. It's almost similar to your moon. I've got it in this way. Now I'm removing off these excess. When I'm making my pendant, I need to make sure that it is always symmetry. What is there towards your left repeats towards your right. Now this becomes the basic shape of my pendant. I'm just rubbing all my excess with little water, with very little water. Do not use excess water because excess water might spoil your jewelry, and that shine after baking goes. You have a kind of shine which comes only with the proper proportion of water and all. That will generally go if you use excess water. So avoid excess water. Now this becomes the shape of the pendant. For this haram or this necklace comes in such a, it comes like you get all your beads towards the two sides. So for this thing, I'm gonna put one loop here and one loop here so that you can tie your necklace knot over there. Take 2 U-loops with little long loops with little broader size. With the help of tweezer, I am inserting this U-loop. With the help of tweezer, I am inserting this U-loop. always make sure that this distance which we are leaving to tie the knot should not be too much big, because always too much is always, you know, harmful, or too much, if it's too much, it looks ugly also when we are wearing that particular pendant. Once my edges are finished and everything, always make sure that we are putting our U-loops when our product is wet. Now here in this tools kit, I have small v, big V, small u, big U. Generally we use a combination of small u and big U. Big U for your pendant and small u for your earrings. So now I'm using a big U. Towards all the circumference of my pendant, towards all the perimeter of my pendant, I'm using this big U and putting impression. I'm proceeding putting impression. Your impressions should not be too deep, as said before, as mentioned before, because if your impressions are too deep, it might tend to break your pendant after baking. So when we are putting these impressions also, as in how I mentioned before, your right and left has to be going hand in hand. Always see to your product, work with your right and left simultaneously. See, now I've completed one layer of my U-loops. I've inverted my tool and I've kept one layer of U-loops. Now I'm going to draw lines using this double-sided tool. See, now the impressions, when I'm drawing it to a circle, everything's come from the center. It comes radially. Make sure your lines are also going radially along with your perimeter or circumference of the circle. If not, few lines are straight, few lines are cross, it doesn't look good. So while working, lightly keep bending your tool also. When we are beginners, we always have a problem, like when we are working, your impressions go side, and you know, we just need to have patience when we are working all the time. Towards the lower side, towards the other side, I'm putting these balls, which are fixed with these connectors already. So generally, while proceeding to any product, what we do is, generally we'll fix number of connectors we want and we'll put it aside. By the time it is dried, we'll make our main pendant base. When this is wet and this is dry, we'll put one into other. Why? Because when it dries, as we said, it shrinks little. As we already have said you, it actually shrinks little, right? So what happens when both are wet? When we are putting only, balls tend to come out, and you know, it all creates a kind of mess while working. And when both of them are wet, when it dries off also, you tend to see this gap at this center, at this edges. Through that gap, you can actually look at this connector looking like, you know, it doesn't give a proper finish to your product. So put your connector into the balls and let it dry, and use the dried one to put it into your product. Always work with right and left simultaneously, so that you know when your balls are suddenly done, completed, you can adjust your corners with some other shape or some other different types of ball. Unlike, you know, when we are putting it inside, again we need to remove it and all. And again it becomes like, at that place you already have that hole present, and if you're putting it, removing it, it loosens your joints and all. So for this thing, you can just hang a small jhumka towards the bottom, or you can put your beads hanging using those two loops which was shown in the previous video. You were being also shown with different shapes. You can experiment with different shapes. When I'm coming to corner, I'm making my bead size to be little smaller, so that you know that gradients of small to big is always there. So now I'm done with putting of all the beads, and the original beauty to the product always comes with the small balls which we put inside with the help of this refill upside down. I'm putting small balls inside. See, always make sure that your ornamentation is not too heavy. You know, if you're putting so much of detailed work, or if you're doing so much of detailed design, that makes your work very tough when you're working with your colors. When you're painting your product, it becomes very tough to you. So always minimize your ornamentation, especially with you know, when you're using small rounds or something. Minimize your ornamentation. Now I'm using this big U tool and making trying to make a different combination of you know, a small eye type, leaf type. See, here I go, I'm done with my pendant, beautiful pendant. For this, if I could explain you the coloring to this thing, now what I can do, I can actually color these circles into one color, this outer area in one color, and these all into one color, and these all the beads in one color, and this into other color. So generally when we are going ahead with coloring, make sure that you're not using so many color combinations. You know, you will restrict our combinations to maximum three colors or 4 colors should go. More than 4 looks, you know, it looks little gaudy. Here I go with my pendant. For this pendant, I can put my beads towards this side and this side. You know, like I have this necklace which I have done using, like I've done 2 different layers. I've joined 2 layers with nichrome wires in between. Here I have done this pendant with 2 different layers, down layer and then up layer separately. When both are wet, I'm going to use connectors, small connectors, and then with the same technique in this way, I'm going to put it vertically and then join these both. When these both are wet, always make sure it should be wet, elsewise it doesn't stick. Now I'm going to show you how to make a Jhumka. In Jhumkas, just always, like, we have our own different method of working, different permutations and combinations of any work. Jhumkas also can be made in different shapes. Here I have one Jhumka which is having this this V cone shape, and this is another dome, normal circular dome shaped Jhumka. The difference between these two are, see, we have basically 3 different types of Jhumkas or pendants which we have. Jhumkas, one is your stud model, the other one is you can hook your thing using your normal hooks, and the other thing is like your bottom balls are movable. For this thing it's fixed, and for this thing I've used only one small thing, but still it gives the same beauty. Now I'm going to show you this Jhumka, and also just the shape, how to shape this cone as shown in the first video. How to size your same balls, I'm using the same technique. Obviously both Jhumkas has to be of same size. So now I'm cutting this side extra, this side extra, and then I'm taking half of this. Yes, the size is fine for a Jhumka, small, medium sized Jhumka. Now I'm going to make a small round. You do have different tools coming in market for your Jhumkas also, but they are all in fixed sizes. So see, check if both the balls are in same size or not. Using put your hand into your eye level, check it down in this way. If both are not in same size, again you can remove or add little clay and work with it. Now once I'm done with this ball, I'm going to throw it from some certain distance to get the dome shape. Now I'm going to show you with little pressure, and then this when it's falling directly, it flattens towards one side and pushes your clay towards up, which gives a dome shape. As I said, I'm showing you this Jhumka. Here for this Jhumka, I have 2 balls, like one is hanging down and the other one is towards the top. The center one is done. For this thing, I've already made it and I've kept it aside. These are 2 balls. For a small ball, I've fixed 2 sides, 2 U-loops, and here I go with this thing, 1 for each. And then for this lower thing, I have fixed one U-loop only towards one side as it's hanging from the other side. And now to hang these Jhumkas, I want few U-loops. Before proceeding to your hanging of Jhumkas, now impressions, which always is a very important step in jewelry. Here fix your center circle. For that, putting your circle, probably you can use, I'm using my pen cap. I'm fixing down my center. If this is not convenient to you, you can put it on your thumb and then you can get your distance. And then press it lightly and you get here you go with that impression. Similarly to the other one. Now for this, see, your center is fixed. Now I'm going to put these lines. For that, I'm using my knife tool. When you're working with this impressions, always as shown in the previous session, how to hold your knife and how to hold your tool and all. Just give your impression from bottom to up. Why bottom to up is, when you're putting it from top to bottom, you can't see what is happening towards your bottom. That might disturb your working. So when I'm working with it, make sure that my impression is coming till the top, from bottom to top. Don't start it in air and stop it in air. Start it from the bottom and end it towards the lower part. I'm using this pen tool, pen refill, and putting balls. Do not overwork with your impressions, as it might cause a problem when you're coloring it. When you're putting impressions also, don't put your impression too deep. Be little patient when you're putting impressions. Because when one impression is gone, your whole effort of making the entire Jhumka goes waste, and again you need to start doing it from starting. Because again the same size ka ball won't come. When you're removing it and making it, the half of the clay will be in your hand and the size becomes small. To avoid all those, just be little patient while working. Now to hang it to your Jhumka, what we'll do is, I'm putting another U-loop, a joint kind of thing into these both, and I'm putting it aside. Similarly to these also. So now I've fixed it. If I've put another U-loop, and now I'm putting this thing into this one. Make sure that your joints are not over visible. Beauty of the product comes like shows over there only. In the bottom, another one. I'm not gonna touch it here because it's wet and it's every possibility of coming out. So here I go with my Jhumka. Similarly to the next one. Work little fast when we are working with this, because if it's dry also we can't work with it. If it's too wet also we can't work with it. When it's in the proper working condition, do not delay your work. Here I'm done with my Jhumka. Similarly, if I wanted a stud Jhumka over here, what I do, instead of this one, I put a button with a U-loop hanging towards both the sides. For this thing, I've done small balls, and then I've put these pins are also supposed to be small. When we are piercing it over if it's too much also it tend to break. So small pins, and then I'm putting it into it. I'll let it dry for some time, and then I'll put it into this towards the corners. For this thing we have put it towards the bottom. No, for this one we'll put it towards corners. See, as you see, I'm not putting it from bottom, I've kept it from corner. Further details, you can check our page on Facebook. It is called Art and Craft at Hobby Hub. And yes, we'll make sure that we'll respond to all your queries. Thank you. Hope you loved it.